Hi there! Since I'm going to be uploading this onto a fresh channel, I think, I will go ahead and introduce myself again. My name is Florence, I'm 21 years old and I am a computer science student from Cambridge, England. I'm also a very enthusiastic knitter, and I know that I really enjoy sitting and watching these videos where people just show all of their current projects, everything they finished making, try stuff on, talk about the yarns that they've been using and the patterns they've used. So today I'm going to start off by showing you all of my finished objects since my exams finished, which I think could be just about a month ago now. And I'm also going to show you what I currently have on my needles and maybe a couple of other bits and bobs at the end. So, starting off with my first finished object, which is what I'm wearing. This is the square neck camisole by Garn Slipped. I am totally butchering that name. They're a Norwegian designer, and also when I followed this pattern was only available in Norwegian, so I had to try and figure it out. I am unfortunately very monolingual, so it was a challenge, but we made it through it. I think now also the pattern is actually released in English, so if you want to knit this, you don't have to go through the same struggle that I did. Should be pretty easy. I've seen the English pattern and it looks to be fairly well written. So I knitted this in one strand of Knitting for Olive Merino. The shade is soft blue. I really love this colour, to the point where I've ordered more to knit an entire jumper sometime soon. And I use less than 2 skeins to knit a size extra small. So it's a pretty affordable project, I think. It has these double knitted edges around the square neck and around the armholes, and then the body is in 3x3 rib. And also, I don't know if you can see, but it has these decreases on the sides, which are always really flattering. In terms of modifications, I didn't make any that are especially significant. Firstly, I only did half of the decreases on the side because I was knitting a smaller size anyway. I didn't feel like I needed the waist to go in that much more, and so I was happy with one set of decreases. Although now that I'm wearing it, I think knitting 2 would have been totally okay as well. I might do that next time. Also, for the top edge here, at the front and on the back, I picked up 5 of every 6 stitches instead of, I think, 2 of every 3, which is what the pattern says. Just because when I saw other people wearing this, it sort of looked as though the top edge was pulled in and then the 3x3 rib sort of radiated out from it, whereas I wanted it more to be straight up and down, so I picked up a few more stitches. I was a little bit worried that it would make the double knitting flare out, but actually it hasn't at all, and so I'll do this again when I make another. And I say when, not if, because I am definitely making another. I have some Knitting for Olive cotton merino sitting around, and I think this project is maybe the one for it. It's my favourite summer top I think I've ever knitted, and I've knit quite a lot of summer tops, so that's saying something. So yes, I strongly recommend this pattern. I think it's lovely. I suggest you go make it. I will again. And my next finished object is another summer top. Both of these were my holiday knits. So I went on holiday a couple of weeks ago, and during my 10-day or maybe less holiday, I managed to knit both these tops. This one took about 4 days, and then this one took 5 days or something, I think. This was quick because it is on 4mm needles. This is the June top by Petite Knit. It's the regular version. There's also a light version, which I think is on 2.5mm needles. I don't know why 2.5mm sounds so much scarier to me than 3mm, but it does. So this is the regular June top. The reason why I knit this is because there was this yarn, noro kakigoori, so it's like the shaved ice yarn, and it was so beautiful, and it's a sort of DK-ish weight. The colour that I wanted, which is colour 1, I think it's called naha, it's been out of stock all year, and I've been trying to track it down, and I finally got a stock email saying it was back in stock. And I was like, what am I actually going to use this for? It's a cotton silk viscose blend. I don't like knitting cotton, I don't like wearing cotton. I was like, what am I actually going to use this in a DK weight for? If it was a full plait, I'd make a summer top, but a DK? And then just like that, Petite Knit teased this DK weight summer top that I thought was really pretty, and immediately that fully justified buying the noro kakigoori, which by that point was out of stock on Wool Warehouse. But I managed to find it on a different website, and I managed to finally obtain this incredibly expensive ball of yarn. I will say also, when I mentioned that I was going to do this, I DM'd some other people who are asking about this stuff and suggested this yarn pattern combination, and so I feel like I've encouraged a few other people in the direction of knitting this exact top. And I hope they enjoy it as much as I did, because it really did work wonderfully for this pattern. This yarn is, I think, £34 or something for a single ball, which is the most that I have ever spent on a single skein of yarn. However, it is quadruple the weight of a regular ball of yarn. So I was like, that's, I don't know, £8, a bit over £8, my arithmetic is not good, per skein for 50 grams, and that kind of feels not so bad. Also, yes, many people ask me whether I used one skein to knit this top, and the answer is yes, I knit the size extra small, but I have so much left that I think you're good to knit most of the sizes. There are, I think, over 600 meters in this ball of yarn, and okay, so I moved back from uni recently, and because everything's been so hectic since we got back, I haven't had a chance to move all of my belongings back into the house. So I don't currently have my weighing scales, so I can't actually tell how much I have here, but kind of feels like at least 50 grams. Maybe 100 grams. So yes, I think I could get another small garment or accessory out of this, no problem, and I managed to knit an entire top. So this top, it's just plain stockinette, but I think it's really pretty because if you look, this is the front and this is the back. So you can see the back is lower, it has this really elegant sort of scoop back to it, which I think looks really nice and adds a little bit of something to what would otherwise be a very plain top. It's also fully bra friendly, which I know a lot of people were really excited about, and I will also mention this first camisole I knit is also totally bra friendly. The yarn gives it kind of an uneven finish. It's sort of bumpy, and I quite like that because it took off some of the pressure to achieve a super even stockinette. Like, especially because I'm really bad at grafting I-cord ends together when I finish an I-cord bind off, and this has a lot of that, including right at the middle at the back. And I was like, oh, this feels so good because I already know it's going to look bumpy, so I don't have to stress out too much about trying to get it completely perfect. It's the same reason I really like knitting stuff with a strand of mohair. It just sort of blurs all of your little mistakes and makes them less noticeable. The one thing I will say is that this colour leans a little bit neon yellow for me. Like, it has a mix of different colours in it, but I wish the overall impression from a distance was more of a sort of beige or grey. And I feel like it is a bit too pea yellow, I don't know. Close up it is beautiful though. I don't know if you can see that and all of the lovely colours, but it is really pretty. And yeah, both the yarn and the pattern I would recommend. I'm not going to make another one immediately, but I think I might end up doing it at some point. Perhaps not in DK weight, but I might do the light version. Anyway, on to the next finished object. These are the Hemingway shorts by the Knitting Booth. I did these as a test knit. So the pattern, I think, as of me filming this, is not yet out, but I think it will be out later this month, most likely. So it's not a super long wait. I knitted the size C, and it is knit in Coast by Holst garn, and the colour is warm brown. It looks darker on camera, I think, than it is in real life. It's a very nice sort of mid-brown. It looks really good. The name of the shade being warm brown kind of worried me. It made me feel like it would be very orangey or reddy, but it's not. It's a really lovely true brown. The fact that it is so dark makes it kind of hard to see the details, which is a shame, because it has these really cool pockets. They have these folded hems. Please ignore my seaming. I don't seam knitwear. I like to knit everything top down in one piece, and this required little neat bits of seaming around the edge of the pocket bands, which was really a struggle for me, but I made it. I think they're called the Hemingway shorts. I believe the designer said this, and I've read it somewhere and I'm not just making it up. But I believe they're called the Hemingway shorts because they have 5 hems on them. They've got a folded hem on the top with the elastic inside, one on each pocket and one on each leg. The only issue I've had with these shorts is that when I made the folded hems on the legs, I just cast off, like, I don't even know what you call it, the cast off where you just knit a stitch and then put the previous stitch over and off. And as a result, the cast off on the legs is not super elastic. I feel like the pattern may not have specified to use a different cast off. I think I remember the designer saying in the tester group chat that they used a crochet hook for it, and the crochet hook might have been a bigger size than their needle, so maybe for me going up a needle size would have made it less tight, because it is surprisingly tight around my legs. That might partly be my body shape or me picking the wrong size, but I think the cast off is the main problem. If I ever have a few hours spare and the motivation to get around to it, I will unpick the cast off and do it again and just put a yarn over every couple of stitches while I'm casting off. Like a surprisingly stretchy bind off, but not in full. Other than that, these shorts are really cute. I wore them canoeing on holiday. They were perfect. And it was my first time knitting shorts, so that's quite exciting. I'm very into the whole knit shorts, skirts, trousers thing right now. And I'm currently working on a pattern for a skirt, which I'm quite excited about. Okay, so it may be July, but that is not going to stop me knitting jumpers. I knit jumpers all year round. It's fine, right? Like, you knit jumpers in the summer so they're ready to wear in the autumn and winter. This is the Senpai Sweater. This was a test knit for the Nepal girl, and like what I said about knitting stuff to be ready for the autumn, this pattern is not out for a while. It was a very long test knit, and I believe this pattern is going to be released towards the end of September. I knit this in one strand of Knitting for Olive Merino and one strand of Knitting for Olive Soft Silk Mohair, and the shade for both was Powder. I used less than 4 skeins of each, so while it's not a cheap project because the mohair is quite expensive, it is not really yarn hungry, so especially if you're using cheaper yarns, it could be very affordable. I think I knit the smaller size, so the size A. Since it was a test knit, I didn't make any modifications really, I just followed the pattern as best I could. I think it will need a little bit of elastic in the collar at some point, but it's not really urgent. It has a folded collar and then a 1-stitch raglan, and other than that it is just completely plain. It has some German short rows around the neck. Other than that, I would say it's really easy and really beginner friendly. So if you feel up to attempting some German short rows, which I think is very doable in one of your first projects, I think this would make a decent first jumper. I knit it a little bit cropped. I don't really like the look of cropped jumpers. But the thing is, especially if I'm wearing skirts or dresses and I don't want to tuck in a bulky jumper, I find that I always end up reaching for my more cropped jumpers. Even if they're not my favourites, they just get a lot of wear. So I feel like this is going to get a lot of wear. The colour for me is just perfect. I described it as a milk tea beige, and then I saw someone else on Instagram also describing it as the colour of milky tea. I feel like it's a very lovely description, even if it is much too pale to really be representative of the colour of tea I typically drink. But it's exactly the type of colour I love to wear, and so I know it's going to be an absolute wardrobe staple. I don't know what else to say about it. There's just not much to say. It's really basic, it's really lovely. The yarn is incredibly soft. Oh, I will say, the Knitting for Olive mohair, I swear, it's softer than most other mohairs that I've tried. I think it's wonderful. I've heard the Isia silk mohair is softer, but I've never had the chance to touch it or try it. So if any of you guys could confirm that, to justify me spending a lot of money on it, that would be nice. But I do find that the Knitting for Olive mohair sheds quite a lot, like more than any other mohairs I've used, I think. So when I wear this, it just leaves fluff everywhere, and it's in my mouth and it's stuck to my nose, and my black seat in the car is covered in little mohairs. I had another project that I did post-exam that I haven't got with me right now, which was the Harai scarf, and I knit it in 2 strands of Knitting for Olive silk mohair within 24 hours as a last-minute garment to wear to a May ball. And when I wore it, I just shed mohair all evening over all of the men in black suits. Everywhere I went, it's like clouds of cream mohair being sent everywhere, and I think I drove everybody crazy. I'm not showing that because I think it will be frogged. I made it in a rush, so the cast on and bind off are not so neat, so it doesn't sit in a nice rectangle, it flares out quite a lot. And also, I didn't buy the yarn for that project. I would like to make a garment out of it. I just made it because it was all I had to hand in the room when I decided to knit this thing at the absolute last minute. I do have one more full garment finish object though. This one is my most recently finished, and it is the least summer appropriate of all of them. This is my own pattern. I've called it the step-by-step sweater. It's a slightly oversized, again, very simple raglan jumper. The reason I made this is I get a lot of messages from people which say something along the lines of, I really want to knit a jumper, I don't know where to start, asking how I learned to knit or whatever, and I always point them in the direction of a pattern, so that's something like the Petite Knit Novice sweater, or my favourite thing, sweater number 9, which I feel like is beginner friendly. But I think people are often really fazed by having a written pattern which uses abbreviations and it's just really unfamiliar to them. And so what I really wanted to do was I wanted to film a long video where I go over the entire process from beginning to end of making a jumper and then make a written pattern that is paired with it so that people can cross-reference between the two. And maybe when they see an abbreviation or a way that pattern is laid out, they can also see visually what that means. So obviously I can't use someone else's pattern for this jumper that I'm going to show how to make in a video, and so I decided to write a pattern of my own, which will be available I think quite soon as a written pattern. It will be free. I will probably just stick it on Ravelry or even on like a Google Drive so it's easy to access. I've got some people who said they'd test it. I have only not sent it off yet because, like I said, I don't have any scales, so I'm not too confident in my yarn estimates for it. Anyway, this bad boy is knitted in Drops Nepal, which is not my favourite yarn, but I picked it because it's cheap and it's also exactly the same weight as Drops Alaska, which is even cheaper. I think it's 30% off at the moment too. We're talking like £1.50 per ball, maybe £2 at worst. So this whole jumper can easily be made for, I don't know, 20 quid? It's cheap. It's also big enough and chunky enough that I feel like it's less likely to become discouraging. When you're working through a piece on small needles, it can be really hard to power through it and get it finished when you don't have the confidence that it's going to turn out great because it's one of your first pieces. And so I wanted something that I could knit on bigger needles, so this is knit on 5.5mm needles at a 16 stitch gauge. I also feel like a 16 stitch gauge is quite easy to meet in general. There are a lot of other yarns. The Drops yarn is already quite accessible in a lot of countries, I feel, but if not, I can easily give yarn recommendations by other brands that are a similar weight. And so yeah, I just felt like it was a good yarn for your first ever project. A lot of my earliest jumpers are knitted in Drops Alaska or similar. I'm just super happy with it. I love the colour. I don't remember the colour names. I think they're just called light grey and off-white maybe. Don't quote me on that. And this took me 4 days to knit. 3.5 days to knit. The first day I just knit the collar, and then in the other 3.5 days I finished the entire thing. And yes, the pattern will be coming very soon. It will be free. I'd be really happy if any of you guys want to knit it, and I will let you know when it's ready. So I'm going to go ahead and show you my works in progress. I have 2 things on my needles at the moment. I normally try to stick to having one real main current project, because I tend to knit things very fast because I get stuck into something and I just want the finished product already, and so it comes together really quickly. This is very much a stash busting project. I had 6 skeins of Drops Safran. I don't very much like this yarn. I don't like 100% cotton. I don't like wearing cotton yarns, and I don't like working with cotton yarns. Since I didn't want to make a garment, I thought it would be really nice to make a bag, because I would totally use a 100% cotton bag. That sounds great. And I found this pattern, the Brigitte bag by Gregorio Fibers, which I thought was so beautiful. I don't know if you can see, it has this like lovely lacy design to it. I believe it asks for a DK weight, and this held double is probably a bit bigger than a DK. I did size up the needles. It's supposed to be a DK weight knitted on 2.5mm needles to make it a really dense fabric, but I'm knitting this sort of worsted light Aran weight on 3mm needles. The other reason why I'm using 3mm needles for this is because I found a pair of 3mm 100cm circular needles made of metal, and this pattern, where do I start? Firstly, it's magic loop. Knitting something of this kind of circumference on magic loop, at least at the start, I think I'd probably switch to regular circulars now, but you need a really long cable. So I think you really do need a 100cm cable, or you're going to struggle with it. Also, this pattern features a knit 4 together and a knit 4 together through the back loop on 2.5mm needles with a heavy DK weight cotton, which is so painful. I did see on Ravelry before I got into this pattern that somebody had said that there are like easier ways to do the knit four together and knit four together through the back loop. Off the top of my head, the knit four together through the back loop, slip 3 stitches purlwise with the yarn in the back, knit 1 through the back loop, and then pass the 3 stitches you slipped off your needle over the stitch you just knit through the back loop. And then for the regular knit four together, I knit 1, then put it back on my left needle, and then I lifted the 3 next stitches on my left needle over that stitch and off the end. And those functionally give you a knit four together through the back loop and a knit four together without actually having to shove your stitch through 4 needles, which is a struggle. I was too scared to use bamboo needles because I was scared I was going to break one of my really lovely expensive C-knit needles. So this is working out okay. The thing is, I still find this project is really hard on my hands. I can't knit more than about 3 or 4 centimeters on it per day before my hands start getting really painful, which isn't generally something that happens to me. I can generally knit comfortably for an entire day, but something about the double-stranded cotton on tiny needles and the knit four togethers is just very painful. So I'm on a bit of a loungewear kick at the moment. I am working on a pattern for a loungewear skirt, which I'm really excited about. But I also thought it would be nice to have a little simple, small stockinette project. And I wanted to make something that I could pair with my skirt. And so I am making the simple bralette by Naked Knit. Naked Knit have a lot of underwear or innerwear, bras and camisole patterns. And they're very lovely, and I've knitted some of their patterns before. But I swear they do not have a fluent English speaker read through any of their English patterns before they're published. They're actually quite difficult to understand in places because the English is so poor. With that being said, mostly they're okay to follow and the patterns are lovely, so I would recommend them. But if you're watching, I'll read through your patterns and correct the English, maybe. This is one of those patterns where you knit sort of 4 triangles and then put them on circular needles and carry on from there. So I started this quite late last night and I've knitted my 4 triangles and done maybe 2 or 3 rows with them all together on the circular needle. It did call for provisional cast-ons at the start of each triangle, and at 11 PM last night, because I don't have those stitch holders that are like a safety pin that you can put through the stitches, so I was going to have to struggle with putting all of the stitches onto a piece of yarn, and at 11 PM last night I just was not feeling that. So I've just done regular cast-ons and I'm going to pick up stitches to do the straps. If I was doing this again, I would just knit the strap first and then knit the triangle out from the strap. But since I don't have one to reference for the length of the strap, I feel like this is a perfectly okay way of doing it. I guess there'll be a slightly more visible seam just here, but I'm not bothered by that, I don't think. The yarn that I'm using is from colourmart. I got it for about £10 and it's supposedly 100% cashmere. There's 150 grams of the stuff here. I'm using 2 together as a fingering weight because I would say it's a very light foot play. So yes, even on 3mm needles, 2 strands together I think works better. I will say it's not super soft. It does soften up quite a lot when you wash it and wear it around a bit, but I think for softness you'd still be better off going with an alpaca silk or something than going for this particular cashmere. It's nothing like buying Cardiff cashmere or something. Cashmere is always really hard to find in the UK. This bra had 3 different suggested yarns, all cashmere, and I don't think a single one of them is available on an English-speaking website. So that's fun. It's a shame because I really would like to make it out of the yarn because it only uses 25 grams, I think, of some of them. And so for buying 1 skein for £15 or so, you could knit the entire garment. So I would totally have done that if that was an option available to me. Anyway, those are all of my works in progress and I've showed all of my finished objects. I don't have a lot of yarn acquisitions, really. I got a second-hand cashmere jumper that I'm planning on ripping up and making some yarn from, maybe. And I did also cave and buy the lovely Brigitte knit project bag, which I can now confirm, for anyone curious like I was about whether this will hold a full-size jumper, this thing is big, it's heavy, this is a chunky jumper, and it fits in here absolutely no problem, even with another project in the bottom. So I don't know if that's helpful to anyone, but there is that information. I have one other knitting related purchase, or I guess more of a DIY. I wanted some new stitch markers because I always use those really nasty plastic looking stitch markers which don't spark much joy. And I always see people with pretty ones with gemstones or pearls or something on them. So I got some materials and just used stuff I had around the house as well. And I made this little set of stitch markers. There are 9 of them in here because I feel like that's a good number to have. I have one that's slightly larger for the beginning of round, and then I have 8 to mark raglan because I feel that's the most stitch markers I ever already use at once. But since I have quite a few materials spare, I think they'd also make lovely gifts for knitters if I make some more sets. So I just thought that was a really fun idea. And I've used them for a few projects now and they seem to work beautifully. They don't annoy me at all. I guess sometimes you still need a locking stitch marker, but generally these work just fine. So yes, I think that's about everything for today. All the projects I'm working on, all the stuff I finished. I don't know what my posting schedule here will be like, but I'll be back again hopefully somewhat soon with some more projects to show you. Bye!